Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here. And I came across a press conference that Cuomo gave today regarding the coronavirus. And what really alarmed me about it was the fact that no matter what you believe about what's going on with the virus and what's to come, it is now clear that it is being used across the board to do what? Well, to take executive powers in places it has no business doing so, such as cybercrime. Audio's a little low on this, but basically we're just going to do a watch along, and you can watch the whole press conference. I watched the whole thing. This is really what struck me as the most alarming. Aside from the different levels of quarantines and him saying that anything could happen, the bottom line is they're using this as a broad tool to pass legislation that's probably going to end up more nightmarish than the Patriot Act. And if you doubt me, it's time to, this is Cuomo himself tweeting this out, and let's watch and listen.
He was in an infectious period, so I don't want people to get confused about that.
The state law already gave the executive branch broad latitude to suspend certain laws and provisions in cases of emergencies. Why did you need to include further language to expand that?
Yeah, a suspension of a law isn't enough. Okay, I suspend an existing law, but that doesn't give you the ability to do anything. Right? You can't do anything. How do you do quarantine? How do you do anything? You know, suspension of an existing law means I'm removing an impediment from an agency, but it doesn't give you the ability to affirmatively do anything. And in this situation, government has to act. Quarantine is going to have to be done. Congregate quarantine is going to have to be done. You may get into a situation where you do have to take actions vis-a-vis closing schools. You don't do that by a suspension. You would do it by an affirmative act. You may have to put in.
Oh, of course I'm going to get some stoppage here. So, you know what? Let's pause it right now, really quickly anyway. Oh, are we having stream issues over on
Hygiene
YouTube?
protocols in public transportation, public buildings, etc. So all of these things could very well happen, and you need the legal authority to do it. You can't say, well, I would institute a hygiene program, but I have to wait for the legislature to come back because they're on vacation.
Let me just stop it right here. Okay? Because that's kind of a smokescreen. And this next journalist is going to ask the real questions why cybercrime is put into this bill. And that's a really great question. First of all, let's talk about congregate quarantine and what that is. If you watch this, he's basically saying that there may be a situation where they get certain buildings or hotels and that you would be quarantined there for 14 days inside. Okay, that's number one. Now, here's where it gets into cybercrime, and you have to ask yourself, why in the world would cybercrime be part of this on any level? Except for possibly they don't want you to disseminate true information through the internet.
Legislation is drafted gave that power clearly in the event of a disease outbreak, and you clarified that for a disaster declaration. But you also included a litany of other instances in which you could exercise these powers. Cyber event, high water.
Yeah. You can't, that's wrong, your hypothesis.
Listen, at first he denies it. He goes, that's wrong. Now again, cyber events, high water, what? Excuse me? And he says that's wrong, but he later gets corrected. Let's continue.
That's what the bill said.
Yeah, let me tell you what the bill said. The predicate are the disasters that were authorized in that bill. So it just took the existing disasters and said for these disasters, not only can you suspend the law, but you can actually do affirmatively what you need to do. Right? Facts matter, Jimmy. They may have added cyber crimes, but it was that. Where's Beth?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
It's the existing list from the definition of disaster in section 20.
Yes, but you're talking about needing this power to manage a disease outbreak. Why not, when you give yourself the new power to issue directives, to essentially affirmatively, you said you need to make law, why not limit that to disease outbreaks? Why include, for example, cyber event, hurricane, volcanic eruption?
I will answer your question. Because that would be stupid to do what you suggested.
Let's just stop it. That would be stupid to do what you're suggesting. Get all the broad powers. They put hurricanes in there, floods, cyber events in this bill, all sneaking by with the coronavirus. So again, no matter what you believe, and I just did a big piece and interview with James Corbett, who I've respected for well over a decade, who does great work. This is very clear that this is going to be a power grab for many, many different institutions, including the state. And we already know about the National Counterintelligence Document from 2020 to 2022, where public disclosure organizations, hacktivists, and leaktivists are now on par with Al-Qaeda, right? They're on par with Al-Qaeda and ISIS and Iran and Hezbollah. So you sneak this in, and now listen to what Mr. Authoritarian Cuomo has to say about it.
So you recognize the law is deficient. You recognize just suspension of a law doesn't give you the ability to do anything affirmative. Fix it for this situation, but don't fix it for the other situations.
Oh!
So next week, when we have a flood and government is in handcuffs, then come back and fix it for floods. And the month after that, when there's a fire and government is handcuffed, come back and pass another law for that. And then when you have a possible terrorist attack, but you can't do anything because you're handcuffed, come back and pass another law for that disaster, right? That would be unintelligent, in my opinion. It's any of the disasters. And that's what it is, any of the disasters. So read the bill.
So there you go. He did read the bill, and they acknowledge the provisions he just talked about, that cyber events, hurricanes, floods have been now taken in this action where they're talking about quarantining human beings, not if but when. All right? And I could have kept playing it. He would have told you the levels of quarantine. I encourage everybody to go and check out Cuomo's own Twitter. Go watch this, especially if you're in New York, especially if you're in New York City, because we've discussed how this is probably one of the last places that you'd want to be in an actual pandemic type event, no matter what level, because of the panic of human beings, because of the price gouging that we've already seen and will continue to see. And, on those very levels, I have been correct. So we're going to keep up on this story. We have to hold our government accountable. We can't let them just pass broad legislation for some virus threat. And believe me, we're following it. In fact, the Department of Homeland Security, I think this is also worth noting. All these government agencies that you think are going to help you and that they're going to make sure that everything is okay, right? Well, guess what? That's not the case. Okay? Seattle Homeland Security facility shuts down over coronavirus fears, where we have our first large-scale outbreak. So Homeland Security, Deutschland Security, that came into fruition, post 9/11, based on that, isn't here to help in this crisis. And if you did watch my broadcast with James Corbett, I was talking about somebody who had dropped down in New York City in Chinatown. It looks like it's just a prankster. That's why you got to double check everything. That's why I didn't play that video. That's why I said I couldn't source it. Because everybody has to be held accountable, and we have to keep our heads. And we certainly shouldn't be allowing Cuomo to just pass broad legislation like he and others, I promise you, intend to do. Guys, I do it 3 to 7 times a day here. Thumbs the video up. Subscribe. Make sure you are still subscribed, okay? I'll tell you what. We've been losing subscribers. I don't know if we're going to get to 40K. I thought we were going 40K, 50K, 100K. I try to tell the truth. I try to put out compelling content. So if YouTube does pull the plug on me, We also post over here at Rockfin, which gets 5 exclusives minimum a week, $9.99 a month. It's like a Netflix for creators, so you don't just get my content for $9.99. You get Nico House, you get the Convo Couch, you get Ron Placone, you get Graham Elwood, you get Ben Askren, you get Chael Sonnen, and so many others. And again, made $40 so far in the first 3 days of this GoFundMe. Hopefully we can take it to the top and we can continue to do this, because really the GoFundMe is the only way that I'm able to do this 3 to 7 times a day and trying to bring you not only the relevant information out there, but compelling guests that know what they're talking about, that come from different perspectives, so you can make your own decisions. I love you guys, and I will see you on the flip side.